Okay, welcome back. I'm just reviewing the comments and questions from between the breaks, so give me a moment while I'm waiting for people to join. So, one of the comments was that it's hard to keep your ears rooted in one direction because sounds simultaneously come from all directions. Part of the point is that you can keep the majority of your awareness, for example, pointed down in terms of your auditory awareness, that you can keep most of it pointed down, even when your instinct would be, for example, to point it forward when a sound appears in the forward sphere. So, in the same way that when you're doing body scanning and you're scanning the pieces of the body, you may have sensations that appear in your back, and you know that they're there, but only 5% or something of your awareness is in your back. Most of your bandwidth, to carry on with that example, with that analogy, is 90 or 95% of your awareness bandwidth is here. So, in the case where you've pointed your auditory field downwards, for example, my auditory field is pointed downwards and I'm hearing nothing here. And there's a road in my house right here. So there's constant road noise. 5 or 10% of my awareness is still there because I can't close the rest of my auditory awareness while I'm pointing most of it downward. But I don't let my mind redirect all of its auditory energy towards the road simply because I've heard a sound. And then my wife is in the other room talking to people, or my dog is at the door trying to get in, or whatever. I'm aware that these things have occurred, but the sound there simply occurs. I don't think about it. Most of the time, well, not most of the time, but some of the time, I don't even get as far as labeling it as a particular thing. I just continue to point my awareness down. So the vast majority of my bandwidth goes down. So uh, let me see. First, I was hearing nothing but cars or my sounds, then my heart, then my neighbors, then my dog. Yeah. So normally, what sound your sound sphere does is you go like this, and it's almost like a movie reel where you hear something and your awareness goes bang, and then it goes bang, and then you hear the heart and it goes boom, and so it's going like this constantly, right? And maybe sometimes you hear two things at once, but it's basically bouncing all over the place, constantly moving. So your auditory awareness, instead of resting like a kala, like Fudomyo, instead of being completely firm in the center, it is constantly moving to whatever sound is most interesting or most disturbing or whatever. And yes, then this person said, then towards the, I'm assuming this must have been towards the end, they said everything was happening simultaneously like an orchestra. That's right. Where instead of the mind focusing in on one sound and going, oh, yes, listen to the strings. I hear the strings now. Oh, yes, I love strings. My grandpa used to play the string, blah, 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 blah. Instead, the mind is taking in 360 degrees in a giant sphere. And the sphere of auditory awareness is huge. It's miles and miles and miles in every direction. You can hear things from an incredible distance. So it's taking in the orchestra of sound in 360 degrees. Let's see. Right, right. So I think this there's another person who said that they basically find it easier to open the awareness in all directions, and this is part of that might be true. I mean, naturally, you might just have the ability to focus in all directions simultaneously, and you may find that easier. But you have to be very strict with yourself and be aware of yourself and make sure that basically you're not just getting kind of lazy with it. And I'm not accusing you, but again, the mind has a habit of quote unquote opening. And actually, what it's doing is just bouncing between whatever sounds are the most interesting in whatever direction or the most disturbing. Bang, 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 bang. So, this mind that we're talking about here is deliberately resting in a fully open condition. So, if you find it difficult to point that awareness in one particular direction, probably you don't actually have control over what directions your auditory awareness is being pointed in general. Does this make sense? Again, it could be that you're quite capable in this area because of other training or because naturally people are good at different things. Maybe you trained in music and this is just something easy that you're very attuned to your sound. But make sure, make sure that you're not just chasing your natural habit to jump around and bounce around, because it's very, very easy to mistake that kind of capability as having the auditory field open, and they couldn't be more different from each other. They are polar opposites. All right. Yeah, and then somebody said, I discovered that my clothing makes sounds when I breathe. Yeah, so one of the interesting things that tactile, obviously, you have the surface of your skin, and then you have stuff underneath the skin. We didn't get into a lot of detail with that because it's not needed for the way that we're using tactile. It's not needed to, dive in and be able to feel your heart and all this stuff. That could be useful for other things, but you don't have to do it at this level of practice. So tactile has an inside and, roughly speaking, an outside component. So you can feel the clothing on your skin, but you can also feel the muscle on your shoulder. And then you can feel the bone, and you can feel where the joint is. So there's an inside and outside. But we didn't go into that much detail because I don't think you need to. Not for this. Vision obviously doesn't have an inside, right? Some of you might have noticed when you look one way or the other that you can see your nose, or that you can see where your eyelashes are, actually, or that some people, if you're older, you can see the things floating in your eyes. So all of that stuff is things that are appearing in the mirror of visual awareness. Yeah, but there's no real inside or outside. Everything is sort of forward of the visual power, if that makes sense. Okay, that's questions from the break. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the auditory power into walking for a few minutes, and then we're going to start with olfactory, smell. So between the walking and smell, it's up to you, but you could light a scented candle, or you could light an incense or something. For this, it actually is, especially in the beginning, helpful to have something to smell. But in the long run, it works the same as I was discussing with your ears, where you should be able to point the sense of smell, even though there's nothing in those directions to smell. But that'll probably be quite difficult at this level of the game. So let's stand. Very briefly, feet, ankles. calves, knees, thighs, pelvis, sexual organs, anus, perineum, waist belt, diaphragm belt, chest belt, left shoulder, bicep, elbow, forearm, wrist, palm and back of hand, and fingers. Move to the right, right shoulder, bicep, elbow, forearm, wrist, palm and back of hand, fingers, bottom third of the neck, middle third, upper third, joint, very quickly, just do your whole skull to the crown of the head. Stretch to the fingers, stretch to the toes, 5 points. Stretch your awareness in the 6 directions for the body, front, back, left, right, up, down. Hold. Release the points and hold. Now bring your tactile awareness to the ears, not yet your sound, but your tactile awareness. Now stretch into your ears and change over to auditory awareness. Hear everything on the inside that you can. Keeping what you can hear on the inside, stretch your hearing awareness forward. Stretch your hearing awareness backwards without losing the forward direction. So now you have 3 points. Stretch your hearing awareness to the left. Now you have 4 points. Stretch your hearing awareness to the right. Now you have 5 points. Stretch your hearing awareness up. 6 points. 5 points, excuse me. Oh no, 6 points. Stretch your hearing awareness down. 7 points. Release the directions and simply open the ears. Rest your mind on the full auditory awareness. Keeping your mind on the full auditory awareness, turn your head to the left. Keeping your mind on the full auditory awareness, turn your head to the right. Bring your head back to the front. Now divide the bandwidth that you have. You're going to put a little bit of awareness in the body, a little bit of awareness in vision, but 80% or 70% remains in mere awareness of sound with the auditory field fully open. Walking as slow as you need to. Try to maintain the auditory field open while you walk. Take a moment to breathe into the lower abdomen. Bring all your attention into the lower abdomen. Okay, everyone. If you think you'll need some support to do the olfactory, the smell sense gate, take 2 minutes, light an incense, light a scented candle. You could spray, if you took vows, don't spray it on yourself, but you could put a little cologne or perfume on something that's just sort of nearby. Or if you don't have that, a little bit of toothpaste or something on something nearby. So just something that has an aroma, and that may help to open the olfactory gate. Okay, we'll return in 2 minutes. So someone in the chat mentioned that when they were doing walking with auditory, that they lost their balance a little bit, like they were at sea. And it's quite common if you're putting too much concentration, for example, on the vision, or too much concentration on the sound, that you try to walk and you get wobbly because it's a bandwidth issue. You only have 10 units of bandwidth, and you've put 9.5 of them in sound, and there's just not your body is lagging, right? You're getting lag. That's probably what's going on there. So that's just a matter of fine tuning how much bandwidth you're putting into whichever sense gate you're opening. If you're going to do these as individual practices, walking and so forth. Okay, so let's move to the next foundation. Please let me know if it goes black. Give me a thumbs up or something in the chat telling me that it's okay. Good. Okay. So the olfactory sense gate, olfactory, for those who don't have English as a first language, is your sense of smell. So as we've done with everything else, we're going to, if we would like to be very detailed, we could start with one nostril by closing the other, and then we do the other side. But if both nostrils aren't really open, that'll be quite difficult. So if both nostrils are very open, which they might be because we've been doing a lot of concentration, which tends to open both channels, then you can do one nostril at a time. If that's too much, then just do both nostrils, okay? And as we've done with everything else, you stretch the olfactory field. And now that you're aware of this exercise where you stretch into space where you're not seeing anything, or you stretch into space where you're not hearing anything, in the same exact way, you're going to stretch the sense of smell in the directions, even if you can't smell anything in those directions. Okay? And just like with everything else, when you've opened up these areas in smell, then you can focus on the directions as a sort of intermediate technique, and then let go of the directions and be aware of the entire olfactory field, which is for human beings relatively small. Tactile, sort of medium-sized, vision a little bigger, sound is huge, smell is quite small, and taste I think is the smallest. So now that our minds are kind of warmed up, as before, don't visualize anything, don't imagine anything, don't try to figure out what am I smelling, what is this, blah 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 blah. What I wonder what all the different elements are they put in the aromatic oil for the right? Try not to do all that. So as with the other senses, let your awareness non-conceptually feel and observe the entire olfactory sphere. Hold it there and do nothing else. That is all. As with the other types of awareness on individual consciousnesses, when you're relying on an object or when the mind points at one particular thing, then it's in a dual state where it appears subjectively as if there's a subject, in other words, your nose or you, that is smelling something, and then something being smelled. When you zoom out and take in the entire field of any particular consciousness, like visual consciousness, sound consciousness, tactile consciousness, and so on, when you zoom out and take in one entire field, then it seems like subject and object disappear, usually, if the concentration is strong, and it seems like there's just like the awareness and the thing that's being known can't be pulled apart. So if your mind with smell, once again, it's very easy for the mind to just point at the thing that you're smelling at and to not open the whole field. So do really work hard to focus on the directions, even if you have introduced a smell to the room. Yes, and I explained this in the previous example. In the directions where you smell nothing, that doesn't mean that you can't open the field in that direction. It's worth bearing in mind. Okay. So since we're running a little bit over time, what we'll do is we'll just do 5 minutes of this. Smell is a pretty small field, so it won't take us that long, and our minds are quite primed for this already. So we'll dive right in. Let's just go ahead and do both nostrils. So reach your smell. Well, first of all, smell everything that's basically inside, as close to the nose and inside the nostril as you can. Smell everything right up close. Now reach your sense of smell forward and smell everything that you can forward. Reach your sense of smell backwards and smell everything you can backwards. Reach it to the right. Reach it to the left. Reach it up. Reach it down. And now we'll begin connecting the points. Start with everything up close and inside the nose. Stretch forward and include everything to the front. Stretch backward. Stretch left. Stretch right. That's 5 points. Hold that for a moment. Now reach your awareness up and add point number 6. Stretch your awareness down and add point number 7. One more time, expand the awareness. Try not to lose any of the points, but focus on the center point. Front and back. Left and right. Up and down. And release, but hold the olfactory awareness in all directions. Just let the mind rest like a mirror. Okay. We shall resume next session. We'll do a little bit more with smell, and then we'll move on to taste. Okay.